Guys, Gummerx here. Yes, that is my giant bear. So today I'm going to explain these giant monsters in the Florian Triangle. Yes, these Florian shadows that we saw when the crew was leaving Thriller Bark. Everyone in the One Piece community has deemed this one of the biggest mysteries in the One Piece series, and I'm here to explain that it is pretty simple following the pattern that Oda has put for us here. You guys, he absolutely loves taking Japanese folk tales, or basically just any type of mythology from history, any type of myth essentially, and pulling it into the One Piece series. And he's done it yet again with these Florian Triangle creatures that we're all so obsessed about, you guys. So we got some extra information here. He's taking two different big legends, essentially, these big theories, and he's pulled them together to create these monsters that we saw at the end of Thriller Bark. So let's get into it. So basically, as the Straw Hat crew has left Thriller Bark and they're piecing out, heading over to the next arc here, they actually pick up this barrel along their way through the Devil's Sea, and as they touch into the Florian Triangle area. And then Lola notices off in the distance these massive creatures that are just huge way back in the distance, and we're seeing glowing eyes. We get this creepy vibe. There's all this fog around, and essentially it fits right into two different legends that are commonly known across the world, and one a lot more known specifically in Japan. And Oda loves taking these myths, you guys. What he's done is he's taken the myth of the Bermuda Triangle and the legend of the Umibozu, and he's taken these and he's merged them together, you guys, to pull them into the One Piece series to create this mystery and add this magical realm even further in the One Piece series. And it's got everyone questioning, will they come back? Are we going to see more of them? And I personally think that Oda might touch on it. I don't think they're going to play a huge role here, but essentially these creatures, this legend of the Umibozu, is actually these massive creatures that when people would be sailing the sea at night and they go into a foggy area, essentially their crew would get overthrown and they'd be shipwrecked by these massive creatures that are called the Umibozu. And yes, I'll put some pictures up here for you guys. They look just like what we've been seeing in the series here, and just like what we saw briefly in these couple panels after Thriller Bark, where we were left with this cliffhanger and this mystery as to what they could be. But essentially, why it was only mentioned briefly was to add this magical lore even further into the One Piece series. Oda loves doing this. He's created this magical universe that we all absolutely love. And then there was this barrel that was picked up, you guys. So just as they're leaving Thriller Bark, the crew picks up this barrel that was floating in the water, and Nami asks if there's any specific text on there, anything about goddesses or gods, essentially. And how this ties directly into this legend of the Umibozu is that there would be people, and they would put these barrels out, and they were doing it to protect themselves from the Umibozu. And if people weren't putting these sacrifices out and giving their thanks to these deities and these goddesses, a goddess would actually summon these Umibozu on them, and then they would be shipwrecked when they're out at sea. So it was kind of like a summoning that they would do. So essentially the Straw Hat crew was picking up this barrel. It's really hard to notice this trend here that Oda's putting in here, but if you dig deeply, it fits perfectly well with these Umibozu and this legend that they have these yokai, evil creatures, essentially, and they'll attack you if you don't praise them and you don't put these out here. So it's pretty funny that Oda just whipped this in there, hoping a lot of people would expect it, but it kind of dumbfounded the community across the world. But essentially, they picked up this barrel and they were protected from these Umibozu as they went through the Florian Triangle. And yes, they got to see them quickly. And yes, even there was a storm afterwards. And in this legend here, essentially, they appear, and then a massive storm comes as they shipwreck these ships here. And just after we see them, Nami actually calls that there's a massive storm coming, and of course there is, because Nami is always right about these things. But the other interesting part here is Oda chose to also take in this Bermuda Triangle. And a lot of people know about this. It's where ships or planes will go into this crazy part of the world called the Bermuda Triangle, and then they'll never come back. They'll just be lost forever. And Oda has pulled this in and made it the Florian Triangle, having these Umibozu in there as well. There are already some people that know about these barrels that are sending them out in this water here as well. So it's pretty funny. I don't think that Oda will necessarily bring these creatures back to show them on screen at some point, but I could see some kind of powerful person coming into this story later and talking about how they had to see these creatures, and maybe they got attacked by them and they were lucky to get out, and basically bring them up to help kind of close that big theory, close that mystery that a lot of people were left as a cliffhanger. And yes, Oda has announced that he's made slight corrections to the story throughout the series, where people have already called something that was supposed to be kind of more of a mystery than it was, and then Oda has changed it to make sure that not a ton of people are calling exactly what's going to happen in the series, kind of create a ton of mystery here. So I'm sure Oda knows about these umibozu that are just this huge mystery, and yes, he's going to close the gap for us someday, and he'll explain a little bit, but I don't think they'll play a giant factor here in the story. I do want to quickly mention that Waratsume was actually called by Usopp to be an umibozu, and this is actually wrong, you guys. This is just Usopp stating that he looked like one and calling him one. So essentially, he is not this umibozu that we all thought he was. So everyone's going to say that he's this tiny umibozu, and there's no way that these massive ones could be related. But Waratsume just apparently looks like one to Usopp. He's not necessarily an umibozu as these legendary ones are that we're seeing in the Florian Triangle. These massive overarching creatures that may be the biggest ones we've seen in the series. We have some other big creatures such as Zunisha and Oars, and the Kraken, maybe some Sea Kings are pretty big as well, but they are not as big as these massive creatures that we're finding in the Florian Triangle here. I would love for them to come back, you guys, but like I said, I don't think Oda's going to give them a ton of screen time. I don't think they're going to come into any massive battles and basically summon to anyone's command or be a massive part to the story here, but I would love for them to come back just briefly at least, so Oda can basically tie the knot on this mystery that everyone is so confused about. Basically to confirm this theory would be great. But essentially, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this fits with this legend of the umibozu, and do you think that Waratsume is not essentially this creature, but it fits perfectly with these Florian Triangle creatures that we saw after Thriller Bark? Do you think this closes this massive mystery that everyone has been confused about? I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. What other videos do you guys want me to make? I largely made this one based off of a fan request, and I'm happy to make all kinds of videos based off of you guys. I've got a big list, and now that final exams are over, I'm really excited to jump into it and start cranking out videos a little bit faster like I was a couple months ago for you guys. But I want to hear from you guys what you want me to make, so please let me know. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed, hit the cute little bell next to it if you guys want notifications. Thank you so much, and have a great day.